The rain tapped steadily on the windshield as Milus turned onto their street. The hospital bracelet still clung loosely to her daughter Ajan's tiny wrist. Bunny, her stuffed animal, was pressed tightly to her chest. Milus was tired, bone-deep tired. The ER had drained her. But Ajan was okay now, and that's all that mattered. She glanced in the rearview mirror. Ajan's eyes were half closed, her cheek resting against the glass, breathing slow but steady. As the car rolled into the cracked driveway of the duplex, Milus spotted it. Their car. Her chest tightened. The old fear returned like a reflex, a feeling she had learned to bury but never truly forgot. She took a shaky breath and smiled at Aeon. "We're home, baby," she whispered, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. Aeon nodded sleepily, her fingers gripping Bunny tighter. Milus stepped out first. The air smelled like wet leaves and nerves. She opened the back door and gently lifted Aeon from the seat. Her daughter leaned into her shoulder. The porch light flickered. The house was quiet. Too quiet. But the silence was deceiving, because they were inside, waiting. Milus barely had time to set Aeon down before the attack began. Valora's voice sliced through the air like a blade. "About time you showed up," she snapped, arms folded across her chest like a judge ready to deliver a sentence. Milus blinked, still soaked from the rain, her hair clinging to her cheeks. Her eyes darted to Avian, who stood quietly by the couch, Bunny tucked tightly under her arm. "Mom? What are you doing here?" Milus asked, trying to sound calm, trying not to let the storm inside her spill into her voice. Valora didn't answer the question. She never did. Instead, she took a step forward, her words cold and sharp. "Your sister's rent is due, and you're going to pay it." The words landed like a slap of their own. Milus felt her spine stiffen. She walked slowly to the wall, hung up her keys, and pulled the backpack from Azen's shoulders. She wanted to scream, but instead she breathed. Deep, steady. "I can't," she said softly. "Azen just got out of the ER. I used everything I had." Valora's laugh was bitter, cruel. "Don't start with your excuses," she hissed, her eyes flicking toward Azen. "Your sister is struggling, and you're living here like a queen." Milus let out a small, exhausted laugh, the kind that comes from someone too tired to pretend anymore. Living like a queen in this duplex, with overdue bills and an empty fridge. From the hallway, boots thudded against the floor. Oswin stepped into view. His expression was unreadable. His silence was louder than any threat. She barely saw his hand move. There was no warning, no build-up, just the sharp, violent sound of flesh against flesh. Crack. Her body whipped sideways and she hit the floor hard. The corner of the coffee table caught her hip. Her vision blurred, her mouth filled with blood. Silence. For a second, the world paused, and then, "Mom!" Ashan's scream tore through the quiet like glass shattering, her tiny voice pitched high with terror. Bunny dropped to the floor. Milus blinked, trying to find up from down, trying to breathe through the shock, trying to remember which way was safe. Her father's face hovered above her, cold, disgusted, almost proud. "Maybe now you'll learn," Oswin said, wiping his hand on his jeans as if she were something dirty. Ayan was frozen, one hand reaching forward, the other gripping the couch. But she didn't run to her mother. She looked at Valora, still waiting for permission. Valora said nothing. She just stood there, arms crossed, like Milus deserved it. And that moment was what did it. Something broke inside Milus, but not in the way they expected. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't fear. It was rage. A slow-burning, ancient kind of rage. One that had been buried under decades of silence. One passed down through bloodlines, through bruises no one talked about. It cracked open. And Milus finally woke up. The slap wasn't the first hit. It was just the first one that left a mark they couldn't hide anymore. Milus sat on the edge of the bathtub that night, cotton ball pressed to her lip, trying to keep her hand from shaking. In the mirror, she saw more than just a bruise. She saw the years. Years of being the one who always showed up, the one who never said no. She remembered writing the check for Isolde's college tuition. Valora had cried that day, telling Milus, "You're doing what's best for the family. Your sister deserves a future." Then came the car repairs, the late-night transfers. Groceries for Valora just until the end of the month. The end of the month never came. Milus worked double shifts, skipped meals, delayed buying A and Mew shoes just to make the payments they demanded. And every time she helped, they acted like it was owed, like she was just doing her part. They never said thank you. They just called her reliable. But reliable slowly turned into replaceable, into invisible, into she'll take care of it, she always does. And now, they had hit her. In front of her daughter, as if her body belonged to them too. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman trained to serve. But for the first time, she didn't want to serve anymore. The next morning, Valora showed up with a casserole and crocodile tears. She knocked like nothing had happened, like Oswin hadn't laid hands on Milus, like her daughter hadn't screamed in terror. Milus opened the door, hesitant, guarded. Valora stepped inside with practiced concern. "You're overreacting," she said gently, setting the dish on the counter. "You know your father didn't mean it like that." Milus stood frozen. Was this really happening? Valora sighed, slow and rehearsed. "Family's messy, sweetheart, but you've always been the strong one, the one we can count on." She said it like a compliment, like a hug made of barbed wire. Then came the real strike. "You owe us. You're lucky to have a family at all." The words sank deep. Milus felt herself wobble inside. Years of guilt, of trying to earn approval, trying to be good, trying not to be selfish. It all came rushing back. Maybe she did owe them. They raised her, fed her. She wasn't perfect growing up. Maybe this was just repayment. She looked down. But then she saw her. Asan stood near the doorway, clutching Bunny, eyes wide, silent, still afraid. And Milus realized this wasn't about paying back the past. It was about protecting the future. She looked at Valora and said nothing. Not yet. But inside, the spell was breaking. The text came just after midnight. Milus was sitting at the kitchen table, lights off, a cold mug of tea in her hands she hadn't even sipped. Her phone buzzed once, then again. She checked the screen. "Leah, are you okay? You need help?" There was an attachment, a video. Milus's breath caught. Her thumb hovered over the play button. Her heart thudded in her chest, loud and hollow. She tapped it. The clip was shaky, filmed through the blinds, but it was clear enough. Oswin, his hand, her face, the slap. The sound was unmistakable, sharp, cruel, final. Then her body collapsing, the thud. Adine's scream, "Mom!" Milus's hands started to tremble. She set the mug down slowly, afraid she'd drop it. She watched herself on the screen, falling, bleeding, trying to smile through pain, through humiliation, through the fear of looking weak in front of her child. And there was Ajayan standing frozen, tears streaming, Bunny on the floor, her whole world shattering in 5 seconds. Milus paused the video. Her face stared back at her, split lip eyes begging. She wanted to delete it, to throw the phone across the room, to crawl out of her own skin. But she didn't, because in that moment, as she stared at her own blood and her daughter's terror, something inside her burned hot. Not sadness, rage, pure, focused, clean. They did this. And she let them. Not anymore. The kitchen was quiet. Too quiet. Only the soft hum of the fridge kept her company. Milus sat at the table with her phone in one hand, her laptop open in front of her. Not to scroll, not to escape, but to remember. And this time, to collect. She opened her photo gallery. Her fingers hesitated. Then she tapped open an old folder, one she had forgotten she never deleted. There they were, photos she'd taken through the years. Not selfies, not memories. Just evidence. A purple bruise blooming across her collarbone, a split lip half covered in concealer, red finger-shaped marks along her upper arm. Each image had a date, a timestamp, a secret. Back then, she took them just in case, but she never really believed she'd use them, until now. She opened her messaging app next, scrolled through old texts from Valora and Oswin. You know what we expect. Don't be selfish. Your sister needs you. Family means obedience. She took screenshots, every single one, labeled them carefully. Then, in a folder on her desktop, she created a new file, the name Safety for A. She repeated the name out loud. Not for revenge, not for pity, for her daughter, for the night they might need to prove the truth. Milus sat back, tears slipping silently down her cheek. But this time, not from fear. This time, they were from clarity. The morning was unusually still. Milus stood at the stove, flipping pancakes in silence. The scent of vanilla and burnt edges filled the air. Behind her, Absinthe sat at the kitchen table, crayons spread in a loose rainbow. No humming, no tapping, just the soft scratch of crayon against paper. Milus placed the pancakes on a plate and slid them across the table. "Pancakes, baby," she said softly. Absinthe didn't look up. She just pressed a purple crayon down harder. Milus sat across from her, pretending to sip her coffee cold again. Then Ayan pushed the paper across the table. "Look, Mommy," she whispered. Milus picked it up slowly. And then her heart stopped. It was a picture of their living room, the brown couch, the rain outside the window, and in the center, a stick figure on the floor, red scribbles near her mouth. Bunny laying beside her, Ayan in the corner with tears scribbled down her cheeks. It was them. It was that night. Seen through the eyes of a child. Milus couldn't breathe. Alon's voice came quiet but cutting. "Will they hurt you again, Mom?" That question, 6 words, split Milus open. She had tried to protect Alon by not reacting, by staying calm, by taking the hit. But silence wasn't protection. It was permission. Milus reached for her daughter's hand, but Alon didn't look up. She was rubbing Bunny's ear like she always did when she was scared. Milus stared at the drawing again. And in that messy crayon world, she saw something horrifying. Her child didn't believe she could keep them safe. And she was right, unless Milus did something. It took only 3 words, but they felt heavier than a lifetime of silence. Milus stood in the middle of the kitchen staring at her phone. The light from the screen glowed against her bruised cheek. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. The messages were still there. Valora's guilt trips. Oswin's threats. "You're being dramatic. Family means sacrifice. We'll come back." Milus closed her eyes. She thought of the drawing, of Ayan's eyes, of her small voice asking, "Will they hurt you again, Mom?" Her jaw clenched. She opened a new message. No explanations, no emotion, no begging. Just, "Don't come here again." She read it once, then again, and then she hit send. Her hands were trembling, but her heart wasn't. She set the phone down on the table next to the drawing. And for the first time in her life, her silence wasn't surrender. It was strength. She had finally said no, and that no was just the beginning. She was gone for 16 minutes, just a quick run to the store, milk, bread, a few bananas. The door had been locked. She checked it, twice. When Milus came back, grocery bags in hand, the front door was wide open. Her breath caught. "Anne," she called, panic rising in her throat. A small sound came from behind the couch. Milus rushed inside, heart pounding. Then she froze. Valora was at the kitchen counter, rifling through Milus's jewelry box. Rings, a bracelet, a necklace from her grandmother, all laid out like trophies. Oswin stood near the hallway, blocking it, arms crossed. "We're just taking what's ours," Valora said without looking up, "since you won't help your family anymore." Milus dropped the bags. Her voice was low, shaking but steady. "Get out." Valora looked up slowly, smiling like it was all a game. "Don't talk to me like that, after everything we gave you." Milus moved forward. Oswin stepped in her path. "You're going to regret this," he muttered. Outside, she heard voices, neighbors, peeking from porches, watching. Then Valora gasped, clutched her chest, staggered toward the floor. "You're killing me, miss," she wailed, her voice rising like a siren. Milus didn't move, didn't flinch, but her hands clenched. Oswin yelled loud enough for the street to hear, "She's abusing her sick mother." And just like that, the story twisted. The thief became the victim. The victim became the villain. Milus turned and saw Agon watching it all, shaking, too scared to speak. And in that moment, humiliation became fury. Valora was good, too good. She crumpled to the floor like a broken marionette, wailing, clawing at her chest, as if death itself had been delivered in her daughter's voice. "You're killing me, Milus," she screamed, "after everything we did for you." Oswin didn't miss a beat. "She's abusing her sick mother," he shouted toward the open door, his voice full of rehearsed outrage. And that was when the phones came out. Neighbors, people Milus had smiled at in passing, now holding up phones recording from porches like spectators at a public stoning. Milus stood frozen, her fists clenched at her sides, her jaw locked. This wasn't just theft. It was character assassination. Valora sobbed louder, crawling halfway toward the door. My heart! She pushed me!" Milus hadn't touched her. She hadn't even raised her voice. But none of that mattered now. Not when the lie looked better on camera than the truth. She turned slowly and saw Ion standing in the hallway, crying, silently, shoulders shaking. Bunny hung from her hand, nearly touching the floor. Milus tried to speak, but no words came. Because in that moment, she wasn't just a daughter. She was the villain. At least, that's what the world saw. And in her silence, she could feel the years of fear wrap back around her throat. But this time, they weren't just choking her. They were choking her child. The ambulance pulled away. The crowd thinned. The silence returned. But inside Milus, something had shifted. She closed the door gently. The house still smelled like fear, sweat, and lies. Anne stood in the hallway, her small body pressed against the wall, clutching Bunny like it was her last defense. Milus walked over, knelt. "I'm so sorry, baby," she whispered. Anne didn't speak. She just leaned into her mother's arms, trembling. That night, after Anne had finally fallen asleep, Milus sat at the kitchen table, again. But this time, she wasn't frozen. She wasn't afraid. She was done. She opened her laptop. One tab for legal aid, another for restraining orders, a third for eviction procedures. She pulled out her phone, opened the folder, Safety for A. Screenshot after screenshot, old photos of bruises, the video from Leah, the slap, the scream, the humiliation. She uploaded them all to a secure drive, then backed it up, twice. She drafted her statement. Every sentence clear, factual, sharp like a blade. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She was calm. Not cold, not numb. Clear. She whispered to herself, "This ends now. Not tomorrow. Not when they leave her alone. Not when they feel like letting go. Now." It started with a gut feeling. Milus had been awake since 3 a.m., her mind spinning with court forms, safety plans, and eviction papers. She wasn't sure why she opened that old drawer, the one filled with yellowing folders and receipts from another life. But when she did, she found a deed. Her name, Milus E. Rowan, typed, stamped, signed. It wasn't a rental. It wasn't in Valora or Oswin's name. It was hers. The house her parents lived in belonged to her. She stared at the paper, barely breathing, then grabbed her phone. A few clicks on the city property database confirmed it. No rent had been paid in over 9 months. No lease, no rights, just squatting. All this time, they had gaslit her into thinking they were the ones helping her. "You'd be nothing without us," Valora once snapped. No, they'd be nothing without her. Milus sat back, pulse thundering. Not from fear, but from anger sharpened by clarity. She had tried to be the good daughter, the obedient one, the one who always paid, apologized, endured. But now she saw the truth. They weren't family. They were trespassers, and she was done feeding the wolves. Milus walked into the law office with a folder clutched to her chest. Her steps were steady, but her pulse still betrayed years of hesitation. The receptionist asked, "How can we help you today?" Milus answered with a single breath, "I'm ready to file. Restraining order, eviction notice, declaration of property ownership." She laid the evidence on the table: photos, screenshots, printed messages, the deed, the video from Leah, Aeon's drawing, even a medical bill she'd kept from the night of the slap. The lawyer reviewed it silently, meticulous, stern. Then he looked up. "You have every right," he said. Milus didn't cry, but her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but release. The paperwork took hours, legal terms she didn't fully understand, dates, forms, signatures. But with each pen stroke, each X on the dotted line, she wasn't just protecting herself. She was rewriting the story of what family meant, of what love should never cost, of what a mother would do to protect her child. Before she left, the lawyer asked, "Do you want to notify them yourself?" Milus shook her head. "Let them get served." It was a cloudy afternoon when the sheriff's deputy pulled up to the curb. Milus stepped out beside him. She wore no makeup, no armor, just truth and the law on her side. The porch creaked as they stepped up. Inside, the TV blasted game shows like nothing had changed, but everything had. Oswin opened the door. His smile died the moment he saw the badge. "What's this?" The deputy spoke calmly. "You've been served an eviction notice. You are required to vacate the premises within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in legal removal." Oswin's face twisted. "You can't do this. We're her family." Valora appeared behind him, tight-lipped, cold as ever. "We raised you. This is how you repay us?" Milus stepped forward, not trembling, not angry, just done. "You didn't raise me. You used me. Now get out of my house." Oswin lunged, pointing a finger. "You'll regret this, girl." "You think you're strong now?" Milus looked him dead in the eyes. "No, you will." She turned, walked away, leaving the paper in his shaking hands. No more begging, no more silence, only footsteps toward freedom. The sky was pale gray, quiet in that strange way mornings are after storms. Milus stood on the sidewalk, arms folded, while Abian sat on the steps, holding her bunny eyes wide, watching. A moving van reversed into the driveway. Men in gloves began pulling out black trash bags, bags stuffed with broken lamps, old bills, rotting food, and pieces of a life that never belonged to them. Inside the house, Valora wailed loud enough for the whole street to hear. "This is elder abuse. She's throwing us onto the street after everything we did for her." Milus didn't flinch. Not when Oswin stepped out dragging a suitcase. Not when his glare sliced through the air like a curse. Not when a neighbor pulled out a phone to record. Aline leaned into her. "Is it over, Mommy?" Milus looked down, her hand resting gently on her daughter's head. "Almost, baby. Almost." Oswin stopped at the bottom of the steps. "You'll rot alone in this house. You think that girl will save you from the shame of what you did?" Milus didn't speak. She just opened the door, let the movers walk in, and closed it gently behind her. The scream behind the door didn't matter. Because for the first time in her life, Milus wasn't the one apologizing. The movers were still loading the last bag when a soft sound broke the tension. Footsteps, tiny ones. Ayan stepped down from the porch, her bunny still tucked under one arm, but her chin lifted. Oswin had just muttered something hateful, but it died in his throat the moment he saw the little girl approach. Valora froze too. Ayan stopped a few feet away, her eyes calm, her voice steady. "You shouldn't have hurt my mom!" Silence. No yelling, no excuses, not even the wind dared to speak. Milus held her breath. She didn't rush forward, she didn't interrupt. She let Oswin stand there, her small shoulders squared against Giant's. Oswin looked away. Valora blinked rapidly. And Milus, she didn't cry. But inside her, a dam broke. Not of pain, but pride. Her daughter had spoken, and in just 6 words, Oswin had done what no adult ever had. Draw a line, out loud. With no fear. The last bag was tossed in. The moving van door slammed shut with a metallic finality, like sealing away years of pain. Milus took Erin's hand, led her to their small, borrowed car. Nothing fancy, but for the first time, it felt like it belonged to them. Erin looked out the window. The house grew smaller in the mirror. Milus didn't check the rear view. She gripped the wheel steady. "We're free now," she said like an oath, like a spell breaking. Erin smiled faintly. And for the first time in a long time, she hummed. No sirens in the distance, no heavy footsteps overhead, no threats waiting behind doors. Just road and sky, and a mother who chose to protect even when it meant tearing down the lie called family. She didn't look back, because there was nothing left to see, only forward. The rental wasn't big. A modest little home with peeling white paint and a front yard overrun with lavender bushes, their scent soft like the way childhood should feel. Milus didn't need a mansion, she just needed this. A place where every door creaked softly, but none slammed in anger. A kitchen with squeaky cabinets, but no shouting over burnt dinners. Windows that let in morning light, not judgment. Amorlian ran through the living room barefoot, giggling as she named the corners. "This is Bunny Corner." "That's Sunshine Wall. And this is where we'll put my moon lamp," Milus smiled. That night, she watched as her daughter curled up in bed, hugging her bunny with one arm and drifting into sleep like it was the safest place on earth. No flinching, no crying out, just breath. Even, soft. Milus lay in her own bed and listened not for danger, but for silence. It came, and it stayed. For the first time in years, Milus didn't wake up in the dark wondering what she forgot to protect. Because here, there was nothing to defend against. The room was warm, not with fire, but with safety. 2 chairs, a box of tissues, no judgment. Milus sat her fingers tangled in her lap. She wasn't here to complain. She was here to untangle. The therapist listened, really listened. No, "Why didn't you leave earlier?" No, "But they're your parents." Just space and permission to grieve. Over weeks, Milus started to say things out loud she had only ever whispered in her mind. "I thought love meant enduring anything. I thought being a daughter meant paying everything. I thought if I gave enough, they'd stop hurting me." The therapist never corrected her. She simply asked, "And what do you believe now?" Milus took a deep breath. That love doesn't come with debt. That family isn't a chain. That I am allowed to want peace. And slowly, shame became understanding. Fear melted into clarity. Guilt gave way to permission. Permission to stop explaining, to stop fixing, to stop bleeding just to keep others warm. Valora and Oswin now live above a shuttered nail salon where the neon lights flicker but never stay on. It smells of acetone and broken dreams. They whisper stories about Milus to anyone who'll listen. She turned on her own blood. She'll regret it when we're gone. But Milus doesn't respond. She doesn't stalk their socials, doesn't defend herself in group chats, doesn't even flinch when their names come up. Because healing isn't loud, it's quiet. It's drinking coffee in peace. It's watching your child laugh without fear. It's forgetting slowly, not because it didn't matter, but because it no longer defines you. Milus no longer carries the rage. She doesn't need to win. She just needed to stop bleeding. And now, she lives. She breathes. She paints again. She plants lavender in real soil, not just over old wounds. Closure didn't come in a courtroom. It came in a kitchen when a lion hugged her waist and said, "I love it here, Mom. You feel happy now." And that was everything. It was a quiet Sunday. Lavender danced in the breeze outside. Milus was folding laundry when she heard it. "Mommy, I made something." A lion stood in the doorway, barefoot, holding a paper crinkled at the corners. Her eyes sparkled, not with fear, but with pride. Milus knelt down. The drawing showed a house. The sun beamed in the corner. 2 stick figures held hands, one tall, one small. Next to them, a fluffy bunny smiling. Adine pointed. "That's me, that's you, and that's Bunny. We're safe now. Bunny's happy." Milus swallowed back tears. She traced the drawing with her fingers as if touching something sacred. Then, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, she whispered with nothing left to prove, "Me too." And in that moment, it was never about revenge or proving them wrong or even surviving anymore. It was about this one child, one mother, one truth. Love is safety. Love is quiet joy. Love is freedom. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Family is meant to be love, not leverage. Being related by blood does not give anyone the right to bleed you emotionally, financially, or physically. Milas's story reminds us that protecting your peace, even if it means breaking from those who raised you, is not betrayal. It's bravery. It's healing. And for parents, this is a powerful reminder. Your child is always watching. What you tolerate teaches them what's acceptable. Sometimes the strongest legacy you can pass on is the courage to say enough. If this story moved you, if you've ever had to choose between silence and self-worth, then you belong here. At Athena Stories, we honor voices like Milus's, voices that were once ignored, silenced, or doubted, but rose anyway. Subscribe now so you never miss the stories that matter, because the most powerful stories are the ones that set us free.